Okay, guys, this is going to be your Saturday video report. A number of complimentary plays coming your way. Took a split with the free picks on Friday night. Cashing in the NBA as the Spurs got the job done against the LA Clippers. Losing, unfortunately, in the Ivies with the Penn Quakers. Okay, let's get with it now for Saturday. I'll run these in reverse chronological order for you. Let's start with the marquee game on today's card, and that's the showdown in Tucson between Arizona and UCLA. Now, you remember what happened the first time these two met at Pauley Pavilion. Wildcats went in, took control, opened up an 11-point halftime lead, and that was their final margin of victory, 96-85 back on January 12th. Out-rebounded the Bruins in that game, 42-33, 12-10 on the offensive side. Limited UCLA to 2 for 14 from three-point land. And Arizona, 6 players in double-figure scoring on that day. It was UCLA's first home loss of the season. It really surprised me at how Arizona dominated that game from start to finish. Now, subsequently, Arizona relinquished the Pac-12 lead when they were, in fact, hammered in Eugene by Oregon. But this game at the McHale Center, where Arizona, of course, is undefeated. This, of course, senior day. Not only have the Wildcats won 21 straight at home, but senior day under head coach Sean Miller, they are a perfect 7-0, and they're laying 1.5 here. Now, UCLA has reeled off 6 straight wins coming into this game, and they've certainly improved defensively because, let's face it, the Bruins were not a very good defensive team earlier in the season, and they've done so by playing a little bit more zone defense along the way, and that could be problematic for an Arizona team that's not exactly a great outside shooting team. But ultimately, this is going to come down to a battle of wills. Whether or not UCLA can impose its will, which is running its up-tempo offense and having success playing at an up-tempo speed, or Arizona slowing down the tempo of the game. Now, you may be thinking, hey, didn't Arizona put 96 points on the board in the first matchup? Was that necessarily slowing down the tempo? No, the Wildcats took what UCLA gave them. But I don't think you're going to see that type of high-scoring game here tonight. Oh, I think both teams are going to get into the 80s here tonight, but I just can't go with UCLA in this spot. A UCLA team that came up short at Oregon. Listen, beating UCLA decidedly on the road as USC on the road decidedly as UCLA did recently, that's one thing. Winning in Tucson against Arizona, that's another. And even though UCLA has all the revenge factors to play for, I just like the fact that Arizona is at home here. And a virtual pick'em game, even though Arizona did not play well defensively against USC the other night, I've got to go with the Wildcats at home in this one. Now, there may be better free picks, and let's talk about them here as we run down the board. I find this game between Purdue and Michigan fascinating. It's a virtual pick'em game in Ann Arbor. The Wolverines, of course, coming off a 68-64 win at Rutgers. Think about that. They won by 4 points at Rutgers. Rutgers sucks. We know that, right? In fact, the Wolverines are down by 4 points with 6 minutes and 40 seconds to play in that game. They only shot 41% for the game. They were only 14 for 23 from the free throw line. 11 turnovers in that game by Michigan led to 15 points for the Scarlet Knights. 31 three-pointers Michigan launched in that game. Why? Because they don't have an interior presence. And we'll talk more about that and why that's the key to this particular contest. They were outscored 32-22 in the paint. We'll talk more about that in a moment as well. They have missed 18 free throws in the past couple of games. Now, let's talk about Purdue. Purdue, big team. One of the best rebounding teams in the country. The Boilermakers, 6 straight wins. And in that stretch, they've won at Maryland, they've won at Indiana, they've won at Penn State. They're 5-2 on the Big Ten Highway so far. Michigan, dead last in the Big Ten in offensive rebounds per game at 7.89 a game. Purdue, number 1 in defensive rebounds per game at nearly 29 an outing. Michigan, dead last in the same category, only around 22. You got Purdue, number 9 in the country, number 2 in the conference in rebound margin at plus 7.9 a game. You got Michigan, 258th in the country, dead last in the country in the Big Ten in rebound margin at minus 2.9. We don't have to go to MIT here and realize that's a differential, guys, of almost 11 per game. You hammer the boards, you get plenty of second chance opportunities, and you can dictate the tempo of the game. And why is Purdue so effective in doing so? Because they have the size and they have the bulk. Now, it didn't pay off last year when Michigan pulled the upset, but I think with the way Purdue is playing in a virtual pick'em game, I would much rather back Purdue in this particular spot against a Michigan team that has been up and down all season. Again, Michigan has no size, so to speak, interior. They just don't exist. It's a reason why they launched 31 three-pointers. They're more comfortable playing on the outside, living on the perimeter. You just can't survive that way, and I think Purdue's going to have the ability to will their way inside and get the easy points and to dominate down low. And I think that's going to be the difference in this game. And Purdue squeaks out the road win and makes it 7 in a row here for them. Another game, UTEP. I've talked about them recently here many times in the past couple of weeks on the video report. And why not keep riding the Miners? This is a team that has just had a remarkable turnaround from the start of the season to this home stretch in Conference USA play. And why not take them here today as they look to wrap up a road trip with a fourth straight win here? I just want to double check here and just do a quick search here and get you their exact record here at what I'm looking at. Currently, yes, 10 in a row against the spread. They have covered 10 straight. They have won 10 of their last 12 games overall since opening the season, losing 13 out of 15. Okay? And it all began when they beat today's opponent, Florida International, at home on a buzzer beater back on January 12th, 88-87 in overtime. Now, they're 3-0 on this current road trip. They won at North Texas. They won outright at Rice as an 8-point dog. They won the other night. I think I used them as a free pick when they won as a 1-point dog, 79-71 at Florida Atlantic. They have now moved up to a tie for third place in Conference USA with Old Dominion. And the top 4 teams in the conference get a first-round bye. Meanwhile, the Panthers, since that game against UTEP, well, they've gone the other way. They have lost 13 out of 15 games. They're coming off a 69-67 loss at home to Texas San Antonio. They're 2-6 in conference home games this season. They're only 6-22 on the year. The key to the Miners' turnaround, Tim Floyd, their head coach, this is a guy who loves to throw everything but the kitchen sink at you defensively. Miners, number 1 in Conference USA in field goal defense. Number 1 in three-point field goal defense. Number 2 in scoring defense. First in defensive rebounding. And Floyd, sometimes, in the course of a half, forget about a game, in the course of a half, he'll have the Miners playing man-to-man, then they'll go to a 1-3-1 zone, they'll go to a 3-2, they'll go to which is a triangle and 2, not a 2-3, a 3-2. They'll go to a box and 1, which you don't even see box and 1s that often anymore. I mean, he constantly throws everything out there, and let's face it, a lot of these guys, these college kids, aren't prepared to face those type of Ds. So I like UTEP minus 1.5 points in that one again. The Miners have covered 10 straight. And your final complimentary play, this one is it's a tough game. Let me be honest with you here. You're talking about the contest here between, and let me just scroll up my page to make sure that I'm giving you the play that I told you I was going to give you, because I debated about a couple of different contests. But let's talk about this game. It's going to be the South Carolina-Tennessee game. South Carolina has fallen on hard times here of late. 3 straight losses at Florida, at Vanderbilt, at home to Arkansas. 1-4 their last 5 overall, including 2 in a row at home. But you've got a Tennessee team coming in here that's also hit some hard times of late. Coming off their lowest point total of the season, a game in which they shot 29%. It was a home loss, 67-56 to Vanderbilt on Wednesday. And one of their starters, Jordan Bowden, their guard, a freshman who started 26 games this season, is battling pneumonia. Rick Barnes said he's likely going to miss his 2nd straight game here tonight. South Carolina, their offense is a result of their defense. And their defense, this is a team that is one of the top defensive teams in the country, loves to force a lot of turnovers. They haven't been doing a great job here of late, but back at home must-win situation. I just think that South Carolina is the way to go in this contest, minus the points at home against a Tennessee team that's equally struggling and finds itself tonight in Columbia. Now, the other game that I briefly thought about using today was the Kentucky-Florida contest, but it's a tough game to handicap. Listen, we know what Florida did in Gainesville against Kentucky earlier this season. I mean, absolutely beat the hell out of the Wildcats in that game, 88-66, dominated them on the boards, 54-29. Now, since then, matter of fact, just 10 days ago, Florida lost for their starting center. So that's certainly going to hurt them a little bit on the boards here tonight. But the problem with backing Kentucky and saying, hey, the Wildcats are going to rebound in revenge. First place at the SEC is at stake here because these teams are both 23-5 overall this season, both 13-2 in the SEC, is the fact that you don't know if Kentucky point guard Aaron Fox, who has a bruised knee, is going to play today. He's a game-time decision. You've got a couple of other guys for Kentucky, Isaiah Briscoe, who's been in a shooting slump here of late. And you've got a Florida team that, despite the injuries, despite everything else, just keeps playing so well. I mean, it's Florida that leads the SEC in points allowed per game at 66.6. It's Florida's and that leads the SEC in field goal defense. Florida that leads the SEC in three-point field goal defense, but Florida also has an issue with their second leading scorer, Kenyon Barry, who Florida had to take care of business against South Carolina the other night with Barry only playing 9 minutes and going scoreless. Yes, he returned to practice the other day, and he'll probably be more of a contributor here. But again, I just don't have that much faith in Kentucky right now. Monk for Kentucky. He's in a shooting slump, 7 for 23 in his last couple of games. On the other side, Florida's only won 3 times at Rupp Arena since 1998, okay? But one of them was in their last appearance. But, you know, you're looking at this point spread. Could this be a 2-point game? It could be. Florida could stay within the margin, and that's probably the way I'd lean. But this is just one of those games I think you're better off watching. It's one of these marquee matchups where often I think it's better to concentrate the most where the odds makers concentrate the least. This is not a game to necessarily bet on, especially with so many question marks with key personnel, especially on Kentucky. So it's a stay-away game as far as I'm concerned. So the complimentary plays, I like Arizona at home, love UTEP on the road, like Purdue in a pick'em situation at Michigan. I'm willing to lay the points at South Carolina at home in a battle of 2 struggling teams between the Gamecocks and the Tennessee Volunteers, and lean a little toward Florida. And that'll do it for today's video report. I wish you well, guys. I'll talk to you again tomorrow when we do this one more time.